Hello and welcome to this episode of Change Your Life in 70 Days. These next few episodes have been taken from a PowerPoint presentation which I created to present the concept to various groups and various people around about where I live in Switzerland. So we'll start off with the basic question of who am I? So just to present myself, my name is Gary Edward Gerol. I'm a psychologist, psychotherapist, living and working in Lausanne in Switzerland, in the French-speaking part. I speak a strange dialect of French that most people hopefully understand. I have been working as a psychologist for over 25 years. I am trained in family and systemic therapy. Next thing is, what is the challenge? What is the challenge? Well, the challenge is a framework, a structure, and a support system. So that means there is a beginning date and an end date. There are various steps that one would expect to reach at various times, but that's for you to decide. And yet, the most important thing is it's a support system. I'm here to help motivate you. I'm here to support you. I'll be on YouTube 6 days a week for my sins. So I don't know how that's going to work. It's supposed to be live. It's supposed to be 6 days a week. I've never done it. So anyway, we'll see how that works. But that's the concept. Now, the other thing that I need to be very clear on is it is 100% free. You do not need to buy an app, although I hope to produce one at some point. You don't need to buy any books, although I'm hoping to write a theory book on the 70-day challenge and a journal book that you can fill in and you can be motivated by on a daily basis. Hopefully the journal book will be ready for this challenge. We will see how I manage to do it. I haven't started it yet, but we'll see how we go. But it is 100% free. I don't need your email address, certainly don't need your name, nor your telephone number, and God forbid, certainly not your credit card or any other details. If you wish to support me on Patreon, you can do that, but it is just really up to you if you feel that the need or the desire to help me in that way financially, but it is certainly not an obligation. It is 100% free. It is created that way, and I'll get some money for this at some point in some way. So what the challenge is not. So it's not a program. It's not something that says you do this, you do this, you do the other. And why is it not a program? Because everybody creates their own challenges or challenge. And that is something that's incredibly important, is the fact is you decide what you want to change. And there is at the end, and it won't be in this episode, it'll be another episode, a form that you can fill in. And that form helps you break down all the different details that I'm going to cover of how to do it and how not to do it, what strategies, what support systems, all these things are something that you can create with support and with our structure, but it's for you to do it. So, and it's not individual. It's not individual from my side. It's of course individual from your side. It's your business. It's your work. It's your creation. But what I am offering is not individualized in any way. Of course, I have my own patients who some of them will be following the 70-day challenge, and they will obviously have the benefit of a therapy which will accompany them in their challenge. I have a patient that is coming off prescribed medication, very high quantity of ketapine, and that's going to be a big challenge. The patient takes a very great deal. They were on oxy, whatever it is, and they come off that on ketapine, and now we want to reduce considerably the amount in this 70-day period, and I will obviously be helping and supporting them to do that, but it will not be towards zero. There's no intention for it to go to zero. It's just too much in 70 days, so they need to be able to step whatever makes sense to them. And my dream for them is reasonably modest. Maybe they'll even go beyond it. I don't know, but there's certainly no expectation to go to zero. But it's only individual for my patients. What you need maybe is to find some experts that can help you on your challenge, so that they can give you that individual help and support that you need. And there's no control whether you're doing it or not. So if you are here and you say, hey Gary, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and we'll say, great, it's wonderful. Other people hopefully will support you in doing it. But if you don't do it, if you give up, if it's too much for you, or that's your business. No, we're here to help, support, and motivate you. But if for whatever reason it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's not the end of the world. And as well as that, I plan to do other challenges throughout the year and for the years to come if things work well. So, why 70 days? Well, it's short enough not to be intimidating, not to be too intimidating. I mean, I do understand 70 days seems quite a lot, but 10 weeks, 70 days, it's doable. If someone says, do it for 6 months or a year, it's like, no way. But 70 days, yeah, one could do that. So it's short enough not to be too intimidating. It is long enough to change your habits, and we'll talk about changing habits in a few seconds. And the third thing is, it's long enough to create differences. So you can actually see differences in what you're doing. I'll talk about my weight loss and how much I've got thinner and things like that, because 70 days is enough to actually to see some changes. So why 70 days? So as you'll see, there has been a study by Liddy Phillips and Javosweld. I'm not very good at pronouncing people's names, I really apologize. But if you read through what's there, what it says, what's the most important thing is the median time for change was 66 days. And that means that if you continue to do something for 66 days, with or without a few breaks in the middle, there's a very high likelihood that after you continue to do it. And strangely enough, there was a writer, Rachel Hollis, who wrote this book on Girls Stop Apologizing, that challenged her public to do things for 70 days. But for her, it was 70 days straight. So if you missed, or if you forgot, or something, you'd start again from scratch. I'm not quite as strict as that. The 70 days is 70 days in total. If you do it, you don't do it, it's really your business. But someone else also came up with this idea of 70 days. So what are the steps to change? This is really interesting. So the first question to ask yourself is there a habit that you wish to change? Is there something you want to go for? Is there something that you can have as a goal? And can you quantify your goal? Can you actually say, I want to do this or I want to do that? If you don't quantify it, it's much more difficult to hold on because you don't really know where you're going to. Now, I admit that when I started my first challenge in January, my goal was to lose weight and to be fitter and to look better. And there wasn't anything very specific there. I admit to that. But I think for most people, it's much, much more helpful to have a quantifiable goal so they can see where they're going, what steps they're making, and how far they've gone. Because when I'm doing a therapy with a lot of people, what I say is that it's not a question of having arrived at your goal yet. It's a question of how far you've come. And are you still moving at a reasonable speed in the right direction? And for me, to go at a reasonable speed in the right direction is the most important thing. But if you don't know where you're going to, you have no idea where you've come from, you have no idea how many steps you've already made. So if you say, okay, I'm going to walk 10 miles, and you've walked 5, you can say, oh, I've reached the halfway point. I'm halfway there, I can keep going. But if you say, well, I've been walking for days, I have no idea how far I've gone, then you're going to lose confidence. you're going to lose motivation. And so it's really important to know where you're going to and where you come from. Where you come from is important. The next question to ask is, what are the benefits of changing the habit? What are the benefits of losing weight? What's the benefits of whatever? So your motivation is also based on those benefits. And the benefits are maybe I'm healthier, but there are also sort of small motivations that you can sort of integrate into that. I've had people that have stopped smoking, and I've said for every packet of cigarettes that you don't smoke, but $10 in a pot. And quite soon you'll have $100 and you can go out, or 100 francs or 100 euros, which is the money you use, £100. And go and do something nice with it, or buy yourself something. And if your goal is to lose weight and to be thinner, go buy yourself some nice clothes or something. So give yourself also some sort of benefit for it. So would there be any inconveniences? There always are inconveniences. There always are. There's always something that is problematic, because at the end of the day, we've not done it yet, and we've not done it is because there's good reasons why we've not done it. But we'll go further into that. So this is a very important question, is why do I have this habit, or why am I in this situation? Because some people are just sort of got used to it. Everybody in my family smokes, so I started to smoke, and we smoke. That's fine. And there's other people that says, yeah, I got into drugs because I was raped, or I was beaten up, or I felt abused, and then it made me feel a bit better, or I got a serious accident and I started taking painkillers, and I just got used to taking them, and it's very difficult to stop. So we need to have a look at how you got into it, and then what the benefits are. Because if you take drugs, you feel better because you take drugs. You drink, maybe you feel better because you drink. Eating, I love eating. That makes me feel good. So there are also benefits for our bad habits or unhealthy habits. Maybe it's social. Maybe you go for a drink with friends. Maybe you have a smoke with friends. That's one of the often ways to meet someone, which, like a cigarette. I'll have a cigarette, start smoking, and things like that. So there are a lot of benefits for our bad habits or bad behaviors. So we need to be aware of them, because we also need to know how to compensate for them. So then we go, how can I compensate for this? So yes, stop smoking. Maybe you need to take nicotine, chewing gum. Maybe some people take sweets, but they gain weight. People that are depressed, often sport can be very helpful. So try and see what one can do to compensate for that. And you need to be aware that every time that we indulge in a, quote, bad habit, it's not always the same. You say, well, a cigarette is a cigarette, a glass is a glass, and a medication is a medication, but no. What I found in a lot of experience and a lot of reflections on people that have addictions is that you have different things for different reasons. For instance, if you think of somebody that smokes, the first cigarette in the morning could be a lack of nicotine. They need to get the nicotine a bit higher up because they're on actual medication, sort of a withdrawal of that. Then the cigarette and coffee for breakfast, well, cigarette and coffee, that's breakfast. It's not a breakfast, you don't have a cigarette with your coffee. And then mid-morning, you have a mid-morning smoke, because it's maybe social, you go out with some friends and you have a coffee and you have a cigarette with them. And then maybe towards the morning you start to get stressed because your boss is giving you a hard time, and then you sort of you can't cope with what you're doing. So you run out, you have a cigarette, you have a break. So that is against stress. But then lunchtime, again, a meal, afterwards a drink with that and some friends. Again, maybe a sociable moment. In the afternoon, maybe again another moment of stress. Maybe you've got some bad news and you can't cope with it, and that's when the cigarette comes out. So, and then as you go on, and then there's also the social cigarettes in the evening and things like that. And maybe the last cigarette at night is to make sure you have enough nicotine in your body to cope through the night. I remember my brother, good God, poor bugger. I remember him going out at sort of like 11 o'clock at night, sort of, well, kids, teenagers, going out 11 o'clock at night to try and find a cigarette machine. In those days in England, I come from England, of course. In England, there were cigarette machines sort of all over town, and you could go and buy cigarettes basically 24/7. And I remember going out 11 o'clock because he needed a cigarette. And that's awful, but it's part of addiction, isn't it? That's part of habits. So it's good to look and see which cigarette am I having, and what am I having the cigarette for, and or whatever the behavior that you've got. Why am I doing this? And don't think that every time you do the same type of behavior, it's for the same reason. Be very careful that you have different things that look the same but not necessarily identical. And then, what would the challenge change? And how would things become different? And if you, like, for instance, you stop smoking, what would happen when your friends go out for a cigarette? Would you go with them and cope to not smoke while they're smoking, or would you stay in and not go out with them and stay with whoever doesn't smoke? I mean, these are questions that are also worth having. So, another question that's really I find interesting is, how often during the day or the week, the month, do I have to confirm my decision to change? You say, oh yeah, I've decided I'm going to lose weight. I made the decision. Or I've decided this, I've decided that. It doesn't work that way. How often do we need to decide to change a habit? So, as often as we practice that habit that we're looking to change. So, if you eat 3 meals a day and you snack twice a day, that means if you plan to lose weight, you need to make that decision 5 times a day. Every time you usually eat. Every time you have a meal, every time you have a snack. And if, for instance, you're doing intermittent fasting, and then you say, okay, I'm going to eat for 8 hours out of the 24, 16, 8. Which means that for 16 hours, yes, you're sleeping for maybe 10. But then for the other 6 hours, which will likely, depends on how you organize it, for most people that do partial fasting, that do intermittent fasting, is they don't eat breakfast, they don't eat a snack, and they don't eat lunch. Or if they eat lunch, they eat it very, very late. Which means that at least for breakfast and the mid-morning snack and the usual time to have lunch, you don't eat. Which means that in those 3 moments, when part of your psyche, because strangely enough, you're not hungry, it's just the way that your mind works. It's just another conversation. But in those situations, you think, oh, it's breakfast. And you think, oh, I'm not going to eat breakfast, I am fasting. Or, oh, it's coffee and a biscuit at 10. No, I'm still fasting. Oh, it's 12 o'clock, people are leaving for lunch. No, I'm going to have a sandwich later on in the afternoon. Again, so that would be 3 times out of 5 that you would need to make the decision to lose weight, to be on a diet. Or even if you ate something that was different, you'd say, okay, I'm not going to eat the usual croissant, pain au chocolat, chocolate bread, or toast and jam, or whatever you usually eat. No, I'm not going to eat that. I'll eat something that's healthier and that help me lose weight. Again, it's that number of times a day. If you're smoking, and then maybe you smoke 9, 10, 12 cigarettes a day. So every time you usually reach for a cigarette, you need to reflect with yourself, am I going to smoke the cigarette? If I'm going to smoke the cigarette, am I going to smoke the whole of the cigarette? Am I going to smoke part of the cigarette? Am I going to have an alternative for the cigarette? Etc., etc. So if you have a habit of smoking 12 cigarettes a day, then 12 times a day, you need to make the decision that you're not going to smoke. On the other hand, on the opposite, if there's things that you're not doing, like I would not go to the fitness. So now, instead of not going to the fitness, I need to make a decision that I will be going to the fitness. So that's a decision that 5-6 times a week. That's my new discipline. So that's also something that, for most people, it will be maybe 3 times a week, but just the same. Every time you do something that you want to stop doing or do it differently, or things that you've not done that you want to do, that is a moment to make a decision. So what can I find to put into place to support changing? So this is people, friends, new ways of dealing with things, and we need to be rather creative with this, because this is something that we don't have a habit of doing, because we don't have a habit of changing things. So we need to start to think, what am I changing, and then what can I do to put into place to support that change? Okay, and also strategies. So there's support systems and the strategies, and the strategies are something that really takes a good reflection, and very often it will be useful to find outside people and often professionals. So if you have something that's a medical thing that you want to change, something to do with your body, and then you need to find a professional to help you with that. Obviously, if you want to write a book and to do something that's more literary or art or something like that, then find yourself a group. Find yourself people that have done this before, that know about that, and can give you very specific ideas of how you can get things into place. The most important thing with every change is choosing to do something and starting. What associated situations or people will I need to be wary of? So this is the girlfriend that says, let's go shopping, and I'm seeing some nice new clothes in this shop, and you think, oh my God, I'm trying to save some money for a holiday, and she wants me to go with her, and I'm going to end up buying a new frock, and it's going to cost me money that I don't really have. Or I've got a guy that says, okay, let's go and have a nice meal out, and it's like, that's their budget for the next few days. You know, he likes to go to expensive restaurants, and I always end up paying quite a lot for my half. Or let's go for a drink, and let's all get bombed, let's all get totally wasted. And oh no, I want to try and sort of cool down on my drinking, and these mates, all they want to do is go and get totally stoned and drunk, and smoking and drinking and whatever. That see, there are people that you need to be wary of, because their way of functioning is going against what you want to change. And how you deal with those, you say, okay, I'll only go out for one drink with you. I mean, I know some of my patients that have been in this situation and say, okay, I'm going out, but I've got things to do tomorrow. I need to leave by 10. And say, oh yeah. And 10 o'clock arrives, and my patient says, I'm going now, goodbye. And say, will you not stay for another drink? And they say, no, I have really things to do tomorrow, and I'll see you again. So it is possible to stay with these people, but you need to know how to create your own limits. And when you're with these people, it's much more difficult, because they have their own systems of how to do things, and often the way they want to do things and what they consider to be appropriate, normal, and not so fun might not be within what you want to be doing at this moment in time. Then you need to think about what alternative behaviors that you can replace your usual ones with. This is all sort of discussed a little bit before. So, as I say, patients that have lollipops when they want a cigarette, or now there's alternative to cigarettes, which can be very useful and very helpful. And sport can be good to deal with that. Running is very good for people that like to deal with their anger. Meditation, massage. There's many things that one can put into one's lives that help us change the behaviours that are unhealthy for us, and find something that's more healthy and fit better into our new plans. And the last thing is, what rewards could I offer myself that will reinforce my motivation. So I say with the people that save money by not buying cigarettes and other things. If you lose a bit of weight, you can buy yourself some new clothes. If you're saving money, you can maybe start to plan for a nice holiday. So it's really important that you keep yourself motivated by looking to see, I'm doing something good. How am I going to continue my motivation by reinforcing myself? So with all that in mind, do you have a realistic goal? Because my way of thinking, my way of dealing with life is that I dream. I love to dream. I love to fantasize. I love to think, oh, well, this would be nice, and I could have this, and especially if I was rich, I could do that and the other. And then I say, well, is it realistic? Can I be optimistically realistic? Is it something that I can sell myself as something that I could possibly do and I could possibly get to? So that's the first thing, is the high dream. Is the high dream doable? Is it something that is possible? And the next question that I tend to ask is, could I be satisfied with a partial success? If I have a high dream, I also have a low dream. Do I have something that would satisfy me and say, well, it's not exactly what I wanted or as much as I wanted, but it's still not bad. It's still a good step on the way towards what I want. Because if you succeed within, for instance, the 70-day challenge, if you succeed partially, then why not expect the next time, the next 70-day challenge, because as I say, I plan to do several of them each year. How would that be? Now, for instance, as I've said, and I keep saying, is that in January I wanted to lose weight and to be more fit and to be more healthy and to look better. And I still have a big fat stomach. Now, my big fat stomach is much less big and fat than it was. I am clearly fitter and healthier than I was, but I'm certainly not satisfied. I'm certainly not where I would like to be. I'm actually looking forward, in a sort of perverse way, to starting the next 70-day challenge. At the moment, I'm in a window of relaxation, small vacation between two 70-day challenges. I'm allowing myself to eat much more than I would, and a lot of chocolate and all the other things I shouldn't be doing. I'm still going to the fitness quite a lot, so I don't want to lose that so advanced with, but I'm allowing myself to relax and to eat more, because I know that in more than about 2 weeks now, 2-3 weeks, I'm going to be starting another challenge. And then I'm going to take myself in hand, and I am going to go on a diet and use my 6F system. Just to have a quick aside with my 6F system. The 6F is fasting. Now, for me, fasting is water fasting. And I'm sure for other people it's intermittent or partial fasting. But no, fasting is healthy, especially if you can get to what they call autophagy, which is when your body eats itself in a healthy way. So that's the first part. And then there's famine, which is a strict diet for a few days. And then there's fish and flesh, which is 1 or 2 nights of quite high protein. And then feast. I don't believe at all in the idea of cheat days. I think that's a totally dysfunctional way of allowing yourself to eat things that you like. I think it's really important that you do have days, even within the 70-day period, then you give yourself permission to eat things that you want, so you don't get too frustrated and then you give up. But I prefer to call that a feast day, and if you've got through the other days, then I think you can give yourself permission to have a bit of a feast and let yourself go a bit. And so that's fasting, famine, fish, flesh, feast, and fitness. So that's my F's. And my son discussed with me today and said, then there's the negative F's that you need to be aware of, like fries and fat and fighting and fleeing and other sort of negative F's. That's very good for this sort of thing. So anyway, so Can one be satisfied with a partial success, especially as a motivation to start again? And the idea to go a certain distance, that's the way I'm functioning with my patients that are coming off medications, to say, okay, we want to get so far this time, and then the next time we're going to go that further down and further down, step by step by step. So these are thought through steps, because 70 days isn't enough for everything. But to go longer than 70 days, as I said, it's heavy, psychologically and emotionally heavy. And to say, okay, I've done 70 days, I've not succeeded, so I'll give it up. That's not necessary. You can say, okay, I've done 70 days, I've got so far, I'd like to go further. I'm going to give myself a bit of a break, and then off we go again. The next round, the next 70 days, and then we'll go further and further and further. And so partial successes can be well worthwhile. So what is stopping you from starting towards your goal? There's so many different people that say, oh, I'd like to do this, I'd like to do that, but I just can't get the motivation, or I can't get the time, or I can't get this, I can't get that. Well, I'm telling you, is that I have fixed dates. If you're going to start, you start with me. The date is there. Get ready. We're all going to start together. We're all going to start on a line like a race, and we're all going to get going. And yes, if you miss the start date, you can start a few days later. That's not a problem. But don't just let it slide. Now say, okay, if I'm going to change my life, I can change my life with a 70-day challenge, and I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to start with everybody else, and then we'll see how I'm going to go. And within that, you need to think about what obstacles are blocking you from doing what you need to do. Because sometimes say, oh yeah, well, I go out once a week with my friends, and we eat and we drink and we do this. Well, okay, if that's stopping you from doing it, either try and organize that that's your feast day, so it sort of becomes okay. For instance, I can't give you, hopefully there's thousands of you, and you all have different problems. I can't do everything. So see what you can do, see what you can manage, but be creative. And a lot of these obstacles are just because you're scared to start. Maybe you're scared to start because you're scared to fail. And obviously, if you are scared to fail, then you don't want to start because you don't want to end up in a failure. But there's no failure. The failure of not starting, the failure of not trying, is already the biggest failure. If you try and you don't get as far as you would like, at least you've tried. And that's always the most important thing in life. So when do we start? Well, we start, I think it's the 27th of April. I don't know. That's what's in my mind. Maybe I'm wrong. So how much effort should I make? Now, I use basically the logic of training and fitness because it's the most simple to understand and to see. But it works. This system, these concepts work for anything. So it's just a question of being creative in your mind to realize in what ways these apply to you, and on what levels, and how much effort this applies to you. So this is the circles of comfort zones, we could call that. And the first level is the negative level, is the really center, because if you stay totally within your comfort zone shrinks. It gets smaller. There are less and less things you feel capable to do on any particular level. And this is where people go into worse and worse depressions. They become more and more feeling helpless. And that is a negative zone. That's something that everybody needs to do a minimal amount of effort, or else things just sort of cave in for them and they become particularly incapacitated, incapable. The next level is the comfort zone. That means I do a bit of effort and things stay the same. And the technical term is homeostasis. It can be apathy, it can be boredom, daily life, always the same thing. I've always got the same weight, I've always got the same level of diabetes, or I'm not going forward with my project to write a book or paint a picture, or I would love to go and run in a marathon with my brother, my cousin, my sister, my uncle, but running I'm not very good at, so I'll have to give it up. So this is basically, once you stay sort of in your comfort zone, nothing will change. And nothing will change is not a lot of fun. I mean, you can stay there, but it's not really the best thing. So then we get into what I call the zone of discomfort, where you're making an effort. It doesn't have to be a great effort, but when you start to make an effort, you start to advance, and we start to feel more positive, we feel more active. And the more effort that we make, and the more we allow ourselves to be in this zone of discomfort, because it is discomfort, because, you know, if someone says, okay, don't just walk to your car, walk to work. Maybe that is a bit tiring, and it takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes energy. But instead of walking to your car, walking to work, now that can make a difference in your general health. And we're talking about everything in life. We're talking about, you know, if you want to write your book, well, maybe you could start to write your outline. Maybe you could start to think about your characters. Write it down. Do something. Get active. Get moving. And what's important is that within this zone of discomfort, if you push it and push it and push it, eventually you get to what I call the suffering zone. And the zone of suffering is where big changes start to happen. When you really get to that point where you really feel it's tough, that's great. Because if you allow yourself for a short period of time, and I'm only talking about a short period of time, for a short period of time to be in that suffering zone, that's when you get the most advances. That's when it really starts to help. That's when you get change, and you get the excitement and the optimism. If it's sport, you get endorphins. If you're writing, you think, oh my God, I finished the chapter. All sorts of things, positive things can happen when you push yourself into that zone of suffering. For instance, to do this video, it's taken me ages and ages to get in to do it. It's been really, really tough just to get going, knowing what to say, knowing how to go forward. And eventually, I'm into it. And I went over the suffering, and I'm now really into going forward and getting things done. However, there is another point, which is the zone of pain. This is where you overwork, where you're in danger. And this is where people get in burnout at work. Athletes start to pull muscles and rip tendons and do other problematical things. People start to have problems in their relationships because they've just gone too far. And that is something obviously to avoid. So that's where you get to. Now, what is interesting is that when you keep going, what was the zone of suffering then becomes the zone of discomfort. The things grow, and we become much more capable to do more. And the obvious way of looking at that is athletes, is that you start building your muscles, you start having ability to do more repetitions, or more resistance, or more distances, or longer times. And that happens in most things in life. The more you do it, the stronger you become in it, the more comfortable, the more confident, the more competent. And it becomes easier and easier to do more and more, and to be more and more successful. So it's really important that you allow yourself to get there. Does it work? Ha! Does it work? Well, this is me. The 4th of January is when I started. I was 99.6 kilos. That's nearly 100 kilos, which is 220 pounds. 110 centimeters around the waist, which I can't remember what it is. It's sort of like 39, I think millimeters, 39 inches. So it's about 40 inches around the waist. And it went down to 92 kilograms. Gone up a bit since I've started eating a bit more. But it's still 8 kilograms, which is not bad, which is 17.6 pounds in those weeks. And I went down to 99 centimeters, which is still pretty much the same even though I've sort of gained a little bit of weight. So that's 11 centimeters, which I'll tell you how much is in inches when I get around to it. I'll put it up on the board. I'm not very good at that. So what's next is filling in the form. So I'll leave that, this will be quite long enough now. And the next time I'll put in the comments a link to the form. You can look at it. And the next time we'll look at filling it in together. So don't forget, we can do this. It's worth trying. It's worth making the effort. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, leave a comment. Just do the things that everybody asks you to do. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.